Hi, today I am going to talk about where to get plants if you don't have your own garden, because I got to thinking that not everybody uh, presses for commercial purposes like I do, where I need a lot of plants and I have racks and racks of books with flowers in it. And also, since I've over the years been fortunate enough to have my own garden, I'm able to pick most everything that I want. But I don't think that the majority of people who want to make cards for friends or their family or for people at work or other colleagues, that type of thing, really need to have this kind of a setup. So that's what I want to address today is what do you use, where do you go to get flowers, and different considerations. I don't know where we'll end up by the end of this video because I also want to cover some flower presses, or if you don't have a flower press, which you can use for pressing. So bear with me, and if I start to bore you, then fast forward to different sections of the video. You'll also see here that I have my cheat sheet so that I can make sure to cover some of the notes that I made so that I go over a few things. The first thing I want to talk about is where to get flowers or how to grow small-scale flowers if you don't have a garden. And there's a couple of things to consider. One is you can have houseplants. Have a couple of small planters in your house and or a planter box near a window and get a few bedding plants from the garden center in the spring and grow a few things that way. If you have a patio or a deck, same thing. Get a couple of planters, fill them with some potting soil, or a planting bed made out of wood, same thing. Fill it with potting soil and get some bedding plants. If I were starting out in that way, I would probably be looking for celosia. That's easy to find. Pansies, that would be a real good thing to start out with. Here's a pansy right here. Alyssum, especially the darker purple varieties. Marigold. Now the thing about marigold is that the flower itself is kind of too thick to press, but the petals, here's some marigold petals. And look at how beautiful they are. And they hold their color for a really long time. Something else you can find at your garden center is lobelia and verbena. Dianthus is another good one. Salvia. And even some herbs. If you have a little indoor herb garden or you have a little patio herb garden, let some of them flower because the flowers press really well on some of them. They might be dainty, but they're certainly worth considering. Things like oregano or rosemary or thyme or even lavender. I like to dry lavender hanging upside down with the spikes, but their florets also press, and even the spikes press too if you thin them out a little bit. If you have a home garden or a patio garden or you're pressing from house plants, it's relatively easy because you can just use a magazine or a phone book, if you can still find phone books nowadays, and get some paper. Excuse me for a minute while I get the supplies that I brought for the video down. Just cut yourself up some newspaper. Or you can use some white, this is just copy paper. I find newsprint is more absorbent, so I'd probably prefer the newsprint over the copy paper, but in a pinch, either will work. Because what you want to do is you want to sandwich your flowers or your foliage between a piece of paper, a piece on the bottom and a piece on the top. And here's your paper sandwich. And then you put that into your magazine or your book. And it doesn't have to be this big. This is a magazine size piece of paper, but you can also do smaller scale. But you do need something to sandwich your flowers in. Once you have your flowers taken care of, you're going to need a magazine or something to put them in. So when you're at home, it doesn't really cost any money to press some flowers. Just simply cut up some newspaper, put your plants in, grab a magazine, maybe you have a subscription or your friend has a subscription, and then put some weight on them. If you have a heavy book, here's an example of a book that's pretty heavy, thick, and that could sit right on top. So that's pretty simple. If you're going to go to the next ideas, oh, where did I put my notes? Oh, yeah, there. Which is, you don't have any house plants, you don't want to do a patio garden, but you do want to try pressing a couple things. Then you need to look away from where you live. So that would lead you to going to places like the country, or your friend's house, or along public roadways. And the thing about public roadways is, of course, you don't want to press any endangered species, and you want to make sure it's public. I figure my philosophy is, if my tax dollars are paying for the public roadway and I'm not endangering traffic or picking anything that's endangered, then I don't have a problem picking wildflowers along the roadside. I won't pick the very last flower or the only flower I see for a particular species, because maybe that's what reseeds the plants along the road. So I don't want to be the one that makes a plant go extinct because I picked the only flower that was left to seed the area for the next year. So just think realistically, be smart about it. Maybe you have friends that have a garden, have houseplants. I mentioned that. Ask them if you can come over and press. When you go somewhere, you're going to need to take something with you. It can be as simple as, again, let me find a few visuals. It can be as simple as some cardboard and your paper. And what you do then is you want to take cardboard, and let me make a note about cardboard for a minute. When you're using cardboard, especially cardboard that you've cut down from shipping boxes, you need to take note of just how wavy is the cardboard. For example, you can see that this piece of cardboard is not very flat. It's got little ruts in it and patterns, and it's pretty wavy. See the wave on it? See how wavy it is? And so if you just take one piece of paper and set it on your cardboard, and then put your plant on it, and put your next piece of paper on it, and then put another piece of wavy cardboard on top of that, you're going to get indentations in your flowers, and it doesn't look very attractive. So what you can do is take your cardboard, and then everybody has cereal boxes or other kind of boxes, and they're smooth. So take a cereal box cut down, lay that on top of your wavy cardboard, and then make your sandwich. And then put another piece of cereal box on top of that. I prefer to put the absorbent side towards the flowers and not the shiny side. Then put your other piece of cardboard on, and then just keep building layers that way. Another paper sandwich with flowers, or another piece of cereal box, another paper sandwich with flowers, cereal box, cardboard, and then just keep layering that way. And you can see it doesn't take up much room, and you can just set it in your car. And then it's a good idea to take a piece of twine if you have it, just because when you're done pressing, you're going to probably want to take a piece of twine and just tie it around your sandwich, just so that A, it adds some weight, and B, things won't slide around as you're driving. If you have to stop fast or you're making a turn or something, it'll keep everything nice and tight until you get home. And if you can take a book with you to set on top, that's even better. Give it a little weight. And this particular setup here, you can probably find everything at home and it wouldn't cost you anything. Just cut down shipping boxes, cut down newspaper, cut down cereal boxes, and go. That's all you need. Something else that's really convenient, which costs a little bit of money instead of free, would be plant presses or things that are made specifically for pressing flowers. For example, here's it's called a hiker's press. It's 5x7, same here. It's just branded as a kid's press. You can buy blotter paper for it. This one's called a nature's press. And you can get blotter paper for that. And then here's even another variety. This is called a flower and leaf press. This is 7x7. This one is the type of press that you take the screws and you put them up through the holes, and then, well, you put it up through the hole, and then you build your layers, and then you put the screw nut on top, and as the flowers shrink, because they're going to be more bulky when they're wet, and as they shrink, you just cinch down the nuts. And it's kind of a self-contained way of pressing the flowers, and you don't really have to do much else. And with the layer of cardboard in there, we've got cardboard and then your blotting paper and cardboard and blotting paper, you probably don't have to rotate them as much as I do when I've got them in books where they don't get as much ventilation. So this is a pretty good idea. It's going to be a little bit more trouble for traveling if you use the kind that bolts. So really preferable would be the kind that has these Velcro straps. So you build up your layers, and then you cinch it with a Velcro strap. Keeps things from moving around, and then you just tighten the strap as the flowers dry. So these are really convenient. You can put it in your purse or in your backpack. Use these for specimens. I actually keep one in my car. I have this larger size in my car, the 7x9, because I don't ever want to be somewhere unbeknownst and find out, oh man, I really like to press those flowers and I have nothing to use. And so this is all self-contained. And what I do when I use this for pressing, this isn't the one I use, this one's unopened, is when I get home, I actually take the straps off and put weight on top. And then that way it self-levels itself. I don't have to worry about tightening the straps as they dry. So I just put a heavy book on top. But you can do it either way. You can tighten the straps or you can put a heavy book on top. So you've got the no-cost method, or these run about $15, $16 for this size of press. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? So we've talked about if you live at home and have plants already, you just go get them, press them. If you travel, you want to take something to press with. And if you want to grow some of the plants yourself, just get a planter box. And we talked about some of the flowers that you can do. Along the roadsides, I don't know about your area, so keep your eyes open, but here in Oregon, along the roadsides are really good for Queen Anne's lace, buttercup, sweet peas, lupin, wild vetch, and a host of other wildflowers. So that all press really good. So keep a lookout. And if you want to buy plants, of course, check your garden center. Also, you'll find at country nurseries, you'll find varieties that you don't find at the mass marketplaces. A lot of the plants that I have accumulated through country nurseries or off the beaten path nurseries because they're things that I can't get at the box stores. You can go online. I've got a few plants that I've purchased over the last couple of years that I bought online because I there's just no way I can get them in my area. For example, the other day I posted a video talking about Alpine Lady's Mantle. Well, I got that online because there's no way that anyone around here carries it. Excuse me for the heater in the background just came on. And mass market. So I think, oh, another thing I wanted to mention is where the heck nowadays do you get newspapers and magazines? Because since so much stuff is online, back in the day when I was younger, it was no problem to get phone books. I used to use phone books a lot because the paper's really absorbent and it's excellent to work with. And where do you get phone books nowadays? I don't even know if they send phone books out anymore. But if you have a phone book, those work really well and they're free. The post office. Our post office gets sends out every week. They have a little newspaper and it's free that has all the ads. And a lot of the people will go to the post office, check their boxes, and they won't take the paper with them and they leave them laying on the table. Well, just go in there and pick them up because they're going to get thrown away. I have a relationship because I do a lot of business with our local post offices because of my business, and I am able to actually have them save me stacks of newspaper because they always have some left after they put them in everybody's boxes. So you might want to talk to your postal clerk and ask them if they have any newspapers or see if there's any on the counter. For example, I know that the post office near me, they put out those free papers and they're quite, they're fairly substantive. You get a lot of paper out of them every Tuesday. And so if I go in on Wednesday, after people have checked their post office boxes, there's usually a lot around. So your post office might be a source for newspaper and magazines. Same thing. People check their post office boxes. They get free magazines, catalogs, that type of thing, and they don't want them, so they just set them on the counter or in the recycle bin. Just snab them. Ask your friends. Maybe your friends get a subscription to a magazine that they're going to recycle or toss out, or they get a newspaper subscription. I used to be a broker at one of the local brokerages here in town, and the owners had a subscription to the Wall Street Journal and the local newspaper. And Recycle comes to our area every 2 weeks, and so by the second week there was a bin, and it was just full of newspapers. And anybody that came in and wanted newspapers, it was like, okay, here you go, take them. So maybe you have some businesses around town that you could go in and ask them, do you have any newspaper that you recycle? And if so, can I have some? So that's always a good idea. And of course, shipping boxes, those should be easy to get. So you just think outside of the box a little bit for things like that. The other main things you want to take with you is you never, in my opinion anyway, all this stuff is in my humble opinion. There's all kinds of ways to do things, and you want to experiment for yourself and see what works for you, because I don't have all the answers, and I don't claim to have all the answers. So anything, of course, is just my opinion. So having said that, in my opinion, you never want to be without a pair of tweezers and a little pair of snips. When you're traveling for pressing flowers or working, you just have to. I mean, tweezers are an extension of your fingers, and you're going to find that you just can't live without them. So always make sure that you take these with you whenever you go somewhere. And I think that I've rambled on, and have I covered everything on my notes? take a platform or a base. I actually, when I'm traveling, because I press in bulk and I have a lot of weight, I actually take, I can find it, oh, here. I actually take a little board because when I'm going out on a mission, which is a mission to get a lot of stacks of flowers, like let's say during Queen Anne's lace season where I want, 10, 20 pages, my stack gets heavy. So I will set this on the car seat and then stack my books up on that. And then take the twine that I talked about earlier when I'm done, and I will twine the whole bundle so that way things don't slide around. So you don't have to have a piece of board. Cardboard will be sufficient if you're just doing some small scale pressing. But for me, I do take a piece of wood with me. So that's what my notes mean when it says platform base. Newspaper or paper, books or magazines, a heavy book, and twine. That's really it. Okay, so hopefully I shared something useful for you, and I really appreciate you tuning in. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.